So this problem says, how many vertical asymptotes does the graph of y is equal to x minus 2 over x to the fourth minus 16 have? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? So when we're trying to find vertical asymptotes on a graph, our first step, what I like to start with, is to factor our expression. So the x minus 2 is linear, and it won't really factor, so we can just leave the x minus 2 the same. But on the bottom, we have x to the fourth minus 16. So I'm going to recognize that as being a difference of squares type of formula, because if we remember our difference of squares formula, it's a squared minus b squared is equal to a minus b times a plus b. So using that formula, because x to the fourth is an even power, we can write our a as x squared and our b as 4. So that would be x squared minus 4 times x squared plus 4. So I know that one's kind of a weird one because you're using a as being x squared instead of just a single variable. But if you wanted to write it in terms of the formula, you could write it as x squared squared minus 4 squared to help recognize that the a would be x squared, because when you have a power raised to another power, you multiply those powers. So that would be 2 times 2, which is 4. And that's how that works in the factoring formula. Okay, from here, we can still try to factor some more. Our x squared plus 4 is a sum of squares, and there is no formula, or there's no way to factor a sum of squares. But we still have this x squared minus 4, which is also a difference of squares. So we can simplify to x minus 2 over, this would simplify or factor into x minus 2 and x plus 2. And then we'll bring down our sum of squares, the x squared plus 4, because that's not factorable. Okay, so now we've factored as much as possible. So this is our function. If we have any common factors on top and bottom, we want to cancel them. So we have the x minus 2. Now that's going to create a hole, but we're not worried about holes in this problem. So we're just worried about vertical asymptotes. So we can ignore the factor that cancels out since we're not worried about holes. Once we've canceled all the common factors on top and bottom, to find our vertical asymptotes, we set our denominator, what's left in our denominator, equal to 0. So if we set x plus 2 times x squared plus 4, if we set that equal to 0, we can remember our zero product property. That means we can set each of our factors equal to 0 separately. So that makes x plus 2 is equal to 0. And x squared plus 4 is equal to 0. Well, our x plus 2, we can subtract 2 on both sides and get x is equal to negative 2. That would be one vertical asymptote. But for this factor, if we subtract 4 on both sides to solve for x, we get x squared is equal to negative 4. At this point, I'm going to recognize that there's no number that when you square it, you get a negative. So this factor is not going to give us any solutions or vertical asymptotes. So that means that we only have this one vertical asymptote for this problem. So the answer would be, because it's only asking for a number of total vertical asymptotes, the answer would be 1. Okay, well, I hope this homework help step-by-step solution was helpful for you. Keep in mind that there's always more than one way to do a problem, and so this is just one example of a solution. If you have any other thoughts or wanted to check to see if any other solution would work, feel free to leave that down in the comments or let me know if you have any questions. And I also have my email listed in the description if you wanted to send me a picture of a question to get a homework help solution similar to this video on it. Well, thanks for watching and happy studies.